So welcome. And while everyone's arriving, it's a great time to take a moment just to start to drop in and become a little more present and a little more embodied. So closing your eyes and just breathing in and feeling, maybe you've had a stressful day, you've been running to and fro, and this is a moment just to start to let that go. So with the eyes closed, I want you to begin to drop your awareness into the parts of your body that are making contact with the seat beneath you. And just notice if you're tensing that part of your body, if you're holding a little extra tension there. For those of you that are just arriving, I'm asking everyone to go ahead and close their eyes and just follow on a little guided visualization with me just for a moment to ground yourself. So with those eyes closed, dropping in and feeling those parts of the body making contact with the seat beneath you, and noticing if that part of your body is tensed in any way, and bringing a little breath there. And beginning to imagine that your breath is like flame to candle wax. So as you bring breath to this part of your body, it begins to soften and it begins to melt. So feeling your butt cheeks filling with breath, melting, softening, and feeling your thighs beginning to spread, melting, softening. And bringing that energy into the pelvic floor. So feeling your whole pelvic floor melting under the flame of your awareness, under your breath. And notice if you feel your sexual organs become activated when you begin to breathe into your pelvic floor, and just bringing that same softness to this part of your body. So inviting your whole pelvic floor, inviting your sexual organs to begin to soften. And just breathing into that. And again, anyone who's just arriving, go ahead and close your eyes and bring your awareness into your pelvic floor. And bringing your breath there and noticing the very center point in your pelvic floor. And this is called your perineum. It's an energetic power point. So feeling into your perineum and imagine that there's a cord of connection that's dropping from your perineum through the seat beneath you. And it's continuing to drop through the floorboards in the building you're in. And that cord of connection continues to drop all the way down to the basement. And through that basement floor, that cord of connection continues into the earth. And it's dropping deeper and deeper through many layers of earth until eventually this cord of connection wraps around the very core of the earth. You can imagine this molten lava, Shakti-filled, energy-filled core at the center of the earth. And breathing that energy from the core of the earth up through your pelvis. And just taking a few deep breaths and feel that earth energy moving up into your pelvis. So just taking a few breaths with your eyes closed and noticing the rooting and the grounding that you feel from breathing into the pelvis and breathing in through the whole pelvic floor, through the earth. And when you're ready, you can go ahead and open your eyes and come back into the space you're in. And I welcome you to this free training. And it's called Reclaim Your Feminine Power. And of course, that title implies that maybe you're not currently claiming fully your feminine power, and that we as women, this is something that we need to reclaim. And I've been working with women for the past 10 years. in one-on-one coaching, also in group courses and retreats that I lead. And what I've noticed is that there's a bit of a crisis going on for women in relationship to our feminine energy. And it's no wonder, because there's really a disconnect that we have between the concept of the word power and our experience of ourselves as feminine. That we are being subtly or not so subtly all of the time influenced by the culture around us to believe that to be feminine is not powerful. And that to be powerful, that we have to lean into a more masculine energy. So I want to do just a little quick exercise with you, which is to ask you to go ahead and close your eyes again for a moment. And with your eyes closed, I want you just to breathe in the word power. And just breathing in the word power and feel what that feels like in your body. Your association with the word power. And notice anything that you feel inside your body, any physical sensations, any awarenesses, any words or thoughts that come through. And just take note of that. And then I want you to let that go. And just take a couple breaths, releasing that, just a couple neutral breaths. And then now I want you to breathe in the word feminine. And notice what crosses your mind or what sensations you have inside your body when you breathe in the word feminine. And if you have a piece of paper next to you and a pen, you could go ahead and write down what were the associations that came to you when you breathed in power, and what were the associations that came to you when you breathed in the word feminine. And you could even, I don't want you to get too caught up in the chat, but you could even write something in the chat box if you wanted to share something that you noticed, a word that came to you or a feeling that came to you when you breathe in feminine versus power. And what I would offer is that it was probably two very different sensations. And we're not used to really feeling feminine when we feel powerful. And this past week, I went to look up a synonym online, and I went to the Oxford Online Dictionary, and I was looking up a synonym for the word powerful. And one of the first words that stood out to me was the word manly. Yes, manly is considered a synonym for powerful. And a lot of the other words were things like brawny, bulky. One of the words was Herculean. Hercules is like a male hero, kind of like a male god. And all of the words implied masculine. It was very interesting. And even the examples of the sentences that they used in someone expressing power all were very clearly in a masculine voice. And what that implies to us and what we absorb from that all of the time is that to be feminine is weak. Masculine is powerful. Feminine is weak. And of course that's in, the vernacular. We've heard so many times someone say, don't be a pussy, implying that you're being wimpy, you're being feminine, you're being weak. So as a thinking woman, you know that this isn't true. You know it, yet at the same time, on a primal level, on a subconscious level, you're not sure. Intellectually, you get that's not the case, but primally you've absorbed that because that's the world that we've been living in. I'm loving seeing some of the little chat box things people are sharing. It's really interesting to notice this difference that you feel between feminine and power. Now, when this is occurring for us, so subconsciously we're believing like we're not quite sure we can trust our feminine. We're not quite sure that we can allow her to lead because she's probably going to take us someplace weak. And we are strong women, right? We're powerful women. We're women who see ourselves as leaders and guides for others. And we have a lot of responsibility to take care of ourselves, to put food on the table in many cases. And so we, without even realizing it, just lean into our masculine again and again and again. And we really don't pay attention and we don't embrace the feminine within us. Now, working with so many women over the years, I came to see that this was a crisis. I started off many years ago actually as a nutrition and health coach. And I recognized, I was focused on working with women, and I recognized with every single woman that there was actually something deeper going on beneath the food. That what was really going on for her was this crisis of disconnect and distrust of her feminine. And I think that we can see that this is a crisis that our whole world is suffering from, right? So we're suffering from it on an individual level, but this is something on the macro level that our world is suffering from. That we are raping the planet. We are raping Mother Nature. And women are being raped and abused, and little children, that include little boys too. But there is this rape culture that we have grown up in, and this toughness and this pushing energy that also leads to war. When the more feminine powers aren't valued, things like vulnerability and surrender and these other qualities, what happens is a wounded masculine energy has been dominating the world for so long that leads to war. It leads to so many of the issues that our world is struggling in. And as a thinking, intelligent, inspired woman, you probably think of yourself as someone who wants to contribute in some way in healing this and making a difference. What's interesting is that, you know, we tend to see that the enemy, that wounded masculine, is out there. And one of the reasons that I think for so many people it was disturbing when Donald Trump got elected is that for many women and many people, he seems to represent this wounded masculine paradigm that we are wanting to move away from, this old paradigm energy. And yes, that is out there. But what I'm really fascinated with, and I think is really crucial and important, is how we have that within ourselves. How we actually internalize this wounded masculine. So within our own self, we have that bully. We have that rapist. We have that harsh taskmaster. And it's very much happening in our unconscious and our subconscious. That these ways that we have internalized the patriarchy, that we have internalized the wounded masculine society that we live in. And it's something that we did at a very young age. We kind of figured out how things were working out there, and we sort of put these people, these characters, into place within us. And started to kind of put the lid on our feminine and said, we can't trust her. We can't really trust our feminine. Interesting, right? We're so sure it's all out there. But what I've discovered in myself and in the women that I work with is that we've actually internalized this. And so this revolution that is taking place is really going to take off and be most impactful, not just simply by women coming into roles of leadership and power, but by those women and by all women coming into a better relationship within ourselves with our feminine energy. Just take a moment and breathe that in. Earlier today, when I was putting together the material for this webinar this evening, and I, typed out the words, we internalize this bully, this rapist. I got chills up and down my body. I had to stop for a minute, and a big sound. I was in a restaurant and everyone looked at me because this big sound came out of me, and I just had to sit there and hold that. Holy shit. It wasn't the first time I thought about it, but it really, really hit home today. So what I am passionate about supporting women in, and what I'm in the conversation of right now, is how can we as women heal this? How can we come into better relationship and alignment with our feminine? And a big part of that is to really understand what feminine power is. Because we all want to be powerful. We want to live in our power. We want to embody power. We want to be a leader in the world. And as long as we believe that we need to be leaning into our masculine to do that, we are not going to trust our feminine. So we need to begin to understand, what is feminine power? Really, what is it? Does it exist? How is it different than masculine power? How do I embody that? How do I connect to that? Because right now, there are thousands upon thousands of women on the planet who have come here, I believe, specifically to be our guides into the new paradigm. We get, this old way is not working. It's not working for the world at large, and it's not working for us individually. So we are here to be those guides. And I've been working with women who are doctors, or women that work in politics, in entertainment, artists, healers, every facet of our culture. There are women coming up who I believe are modern priestesses, the women that are here to teach and guide and lead from the feminine. But something has to happen for us individually first before we can really actualize that mission, before we can really step into that role. So I believe that you've been chosen, in a sense, or you've come forward to be this leader, and you have a special, very unique way that you're meant to contribute to this revolution, that you're meant to contribute in your very unique gifts and genius. And I believe that, I want to say for all women, really, that cannot be fully activated until you come into right relationship with the feminine within yourself. Because that is the frequency that we are meant to guide and lead from. So the world that we're living in, the patriarchy, what this is a wounded masculine paradigm. It's not the masculine paradigm. There's a divine masculine, but this is the wounded masculine. And at this time, the world is craving and calling for the feminine, for the divine feminine to step forward. Not the wounded feminine, the divine feminine. That is the antidote, really, to the problems and the issues of our current paradigm and world. So we are meant to embody that. We are meant to guide and lead from this space. And it's very much an embodiment. It's coming into alignment. It's leading and defining what feminine power is by your presence, by owning it, by breathing and being it. So Our world needs this, and we need it individually, because this is the thing. This is why it is so important, is that as a woman, if you have not come into right relationship with your own feminine energy, you are going to experience burnout, because it's not sustainable to keep pushing and leaning into your masculine. I've seen it. I've seen what this does to women. It creates havoc in your life. And you can do it for a certain period of time, and then things start to break down. And it affects your health, it affects your relationships, it affects your emotional well-being, and it affects your ability to really be able to sustain and keep moving forward and offering your gifts to the world in the way you're meant to. Because you start to, if you're not in right relationship with your feminine, you're not in touch with your instincts, you're not in touch with your true intuition, you're not in touch with your natural rhythms and cycles and your hormones, and you're not filling your tank. It's like the feminine energy is a fuel that we need as women. We need to have a full tank, and we need to be embodying the feminine. Like, that's what we're here to teach. That's what we're here to guide from. So we have to embody it ourselves. Checking my notes. I have a few notes on things I want to make sure that I cover. So here we are. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the women who are here to guide and lead. And as I said, I've worked with women who are really functioning in like every facet of our culture. So this could be something that you feel yourself, you're meant to guide and lead in your career in some way. And you could also be a stay-at-home mother. And, you know, a mother, that role, I work with a lot of women who are mothers, is such an important role, because you really are a leader and you're teaching others very directly in that role. So really, no matter where you are in your life, or no matter what role or how you plan to be a leader, this is really critical and really important. So the question is, what is feminine power? If our culture or society has defined it as masculine, how do I discover what the feminine form of power is? And what I've uncovered is a model of feminine power that's based on goddess archetypes. So these mythologies, these stories of goddesses actually teach us about the different forms of feminine power, the different faces and facets of our own feminine power. And I believe that these stories and these archetypal characters were passed from mother to daughter, or were passed around in tribal circles, so that young women growing up got to absorb and see and value feminine power and understand what that looks like and be able to find that within themselves. And that's gotten lost, because really the myths that our culture is based on don't value the feminine and don't show us what feminine power is. So as you work with the model of feminine power that I'm talking about, what I say is that you actually become an embodiment of the goddess. And I know that sounds very lofty and maybe a little woo-hooey, but to me it's something that's very real. Because what that means to me is that you become an embodiment of the divine feminine, meaning that you're living and breathing the qualities of feminine power, and you are emanating a frequency of divine feminine energy. Just like our culture and many people in it are emanating a frequency of a wounded masculine. And it was very interesting because actually today, as I was sitting in that restaurant and I was typing up some notes for this evening's training, I was sitting next to a table of 3 men that were absolutely in that old masculine paradigm. You know, they were talking about these deals and this money and pushing and investing, and it was just so interesting just to feel that energy and be sitting right next to that frequency as I was working on this. And that is something that's very real. You know, you're emanating a frequency, you're embodying something. And so when I say a woman is embodying the goddess, it means that she's literally owning and embodying a frequency of energy that is this divine feminine energy, which is the antidote to this old paradigm world, and is a healing nectar. It's like you walk into a space and people feel it. And this new paradigm way of being a leader and being in your power is very much about being. It's being the energetic frequency of something. It's being in alignment, as opposed to being in the head and pushing and going after something in that way. It's about really being the energetic. It's being your message. And when you are in alignment, you're in attunement with natural rhythms and cycles, and you're actually in attunement with everything that's going on in the world. In some way, it's like you've fallen into this alignment, and things do manifest in an easier way. It is a much more easeful way of manifesting. It's a much more easeful way of leading and guiding. And so we are the ones that are meant to really instruct our culture, instruct the people around us about what feminine power is by becoming it. And so I want to share with you a little bit about this model of feminine power. So a few years ago, I was about to lead a retreat in Costa Rica, and I had been leading retreats where I would bring in a goddess mythology, a goddess story, and we would embody that goddess. And for this retreat, there were 3 archetypes I was working with. One was the warrior goddess, one was the compassionate goddess, and one was the sensual goddess. And we were going to spend 2 days with each of these archetypes, bringing in different goddesses that fell into each of these categories. And there was a moment while I was meditating and in preparation where suddenly a triangle appeared across my body. I saw my own body in front of me in my mind's eye, and this triangle, and I saw that on the bottom was the warrior goddess and the sensual goddess, what I call the fierce and the feminine. And then in the point of the triangle was the free compassion, the free heart, the compassionate goddess. And the triangle was lit up, and it was communicating in a way to me the energetics of how this is actually a very complete model of feminine power. That these are 3 universal archetypes that apply to all women. And that when we can activate this triangle of energies within ourselves, we activate living as an embodiment of the goddess, as an embodiment of feminine power. And I want to just show you, give you a little visual right now. So let me just pull up my thing. Sorry, these tech things always take a moment. Oh, you know what? Where's the share screen? Sorry. Start share. Okay, there we go. And sorry, just having a little tech glitch here. Okay, so you should be seeing this triangle. So the base of the triangle has the feminine and the fierce, which is your inner sensual goddess and your inner warrior goddess. And the point of the triangle, as I said, is the compassionate goddess. And these three energies are universal. These three goddess archetypes show up again and again across every culture. So it's repeated. You'll see in Africa, in the Greek goddesses, in the Hindu goddesses, and the Egyptian goddesses, all the traditions that we have a lot of rich goddess cultural information about, we'll see these same archetypes, these same types of feminine goddess characters repeated. And the first one I want to share with you about is the sensual goddess. So as a woman, when you're able to access the sensual goddess within you, you are connecting to powers of receptivity, of being in the moment, to connecting to what brings you pleasure, which connects you to your feminine instincts, awareness of your desires, knowing your juicy yes, filling up your tank, feeling rejuvenated, feeling magnetic so that you attract with ease. And when you're in that space, you attract allies, you attract support. The energy of joy and pleasure are the guiding principles. So this is one of the number one energies that women don't connect to and are really lacking and feel kind of unsafe around. And the sensual goddess is a goddess such as Aphrodite in the Greek and Roman tradition. We see her in Lakshmi in the Hindu tradition. We see her as Hathor in the Egyptian traditions. And she and Oshun actually in the African Yoruban tradition. So we see these goddesses that are connected to bodies of water. These goddesses that are in their bodies, that are sensual, that attract and magnetize. And Oshun, the African Yoruban goddess, she has a honey pot that she has tied around her waist. She casts magic spells out of that pot. And when we hear stories like this, we start to understand, like, oh, this is a power that I have as a woman, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. In our culture, we have the story of Adam and Eve. That's like one of our basic cultural myths. And in that story, Eve is the seductress, right? She convinces Adam to take a bite of the apple, and the downfall. They're kicked out of the Garden of Eden. And women have to suffer for eternity because of this. Now, in Oshun's story, because of her magical honeypot and her dancing and her sensual energy, she actually saves the world. Everything's broken down and not functioning in the world. And she comes in and she brings joy and pleasure back. And everything starts to function again. It's a very simple mythology that, if you can imagine learning that as a little girl, you would learn that your joy, that your pleasure, that you're dancing. It's like she in the myth, she's dancing and she's dipping into her honey pot and she's being this beautiful sensual being. And it's through this that she saves the world. It's like a superpower. It's like she's a superhero. And so if you can imagine, as a young woman or a little girl even, you were learning stories like this, you would start to understand that this was okay, that this was a part of a power, that was something that was necessary. That's just one example of one of the sensual goddesses. But what happens as a woman when we start to access this energy, we begin to fill our tank. We begin to actually be better at creating and carving out time and space for pleasure, carving out opportunities to fill our tank. We allow ourselves to be more present and alive in our bodies. And really from that place, we do magnetize. We're better leaders. It's so interesting. One of my clients just recently, we were doing a session and she came to me because she just really wanted for her personal life to connect to her sensuality and her feminine energy. And she came to one of our sessions so surprised that she was going into the boardroom and she was noticing, she's a high C-level executive, that her team and the way that everything was flowing there was so much better once she started to access this energy, which she was doing for her personal life, but it was having huge impact in her work life. So it's understanding and valuing this part of ourselves. Now, when we connect to this power, it's like this feeling of we're making love to life. And when you feel like you're making love to life, there's a flow. And if you can, you know that feeling like the day after you've had great sex and you walk outside the door and it's like, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. You just feel like the red carpet's rolled out in front of you, like anything will roll off your back. It's like you feel like the birds are chirping, the sun is out, and it's all just for you. It's that kind of energy when we're connected to this within ourselves and not dependent on having great sex with a guy, but it's actually something that we understand as a power that we can access within ourselves. We bring that kind of energy, that kind of power to everything that we do. And really, this power is so magnetic and it's so strong that this is one of the ones that was very purposefully, by our culture's stories, buried underground so that we have guilt and we have shame around it. And we're not, it's shown to us, this aspect in our culture, in a very shadowy way, in a way that doesn't seem valued. And we don't know how to access it in a very pure way, how to connect to our erotic innocence, how to be a clear channel for just this joyful, sensual energy and this flowing. These are river goddesses and ocean goddesses. It's like bodies of water to have this flow through us. It's like our culture has made us fearful about it, has shut us down, told us we can't trust it, guilted and shamed us around it, so that we become kind of tense and stiff and not really in our body and not trusting that flow of joy, that flow of pleasure, of our turn on. You know, a woman that I know who we were in a conversation once, she described it as the oracle between her legs, which is connecting to that sexual energy and that pleasure. Because that's really the home of where the sensual goddess is in our body. It's in our sexual organs. It's in our pelvis. It's in this area where we feel pleasure and we feel our turn on. And that turn on is important. We want to feel turned on by our life. And our turn on is part of our instincts that help guide us. So that's a little taste of what the sensual goddess power is. This aspect of the divine feminine. Now, the second goddess power that I want to introduce you to, or the second aspect of your feminine power, is what I call the fierce. And the fierce is your inner warrior goddess. And that warrior goddess is kind of the yang. That's like the masculine within the feminine, right? So in the base of that triangle, you have you have the yin and the yang. So the sensual goddess is like the very essence of your femininity. It's like the feminine within the feminine. The warrior goddess is the masculine within the feminine, but it's still a goddess energy. And this is where it's different than leaning into your masculine. To connect to the warrior goddess is to connect to a lot of these qualities that we associate with masculine. So it is placing down boundaries. It's the ability to really trust your gut instincts. I'm going to do another screen share just to show you an example and list some of the qualities of this form of your feminine power. So when you are embodying the warrior goddess aspect of your feminine power, you have clarity of vision, you own your no, you are able to speak up, you face your own shadows, you integrate your anger, your bitchiness, you integrate with your darkness. Because one of the things that happens is we lean into our masculine, But we also don't give ourselves permission to connect to some of the darker shadows that are within us. And connecting to the warrior goddess gives us permission to do that. Also, our wild woman. There's so much of our power, so much of our resource is hidden away in these places that we're actually scared to go into because of the cultural stories, that there's shame around this, that there's guilt around those feelings. And so it remains bottled up inside. And that can actually lead to disease, ultimately, and emotional issues. So connecting to this space of your feminine power allows you to actually go into your darkness a little bit. And again, it's not the same thing as leaning into masculine, because you are absolutely still owning your feminine goddess energy. You're owning your feminine, and then you've brought in this ability to also, at the same time as you're owning all that sensuality, you don't have to let that go. You can be clear on your boundaries, owning that no, speaking up for yourself, being courageous. And some of the goddesses that are associated with this are Sekhmet from Egypt. She's the lion-headed goddess. When we are connecting to her, it's like we become the embodiment of this fierce lioness. And then in the middle, that's Oya from the African Yoruban tradition. And then that's Artemis all the way on the other end with her bow and arrow. So every warrior goddess has some form of weapon. And here's Durga. She's the Hindu warrior goddess of truth, boundaries, and courage. So in every goddess culture around the world, you'll come across an example of a warrior goddess. You'll come across a goddess who carries a weapon. And there is this ferocity that this goddess carries. And this gives us permission as women to own that fury, to own the shadow, own the darkness, put boundaries down like a motherfucker, you know, like just place that down without apologizing for it. And again, what is important is understanding in this work that you don't have to let go of that sensual energy. We're taught in our culture that these are kind of opposing energies. And here, in the model that I use, what you begin to understand is that these two energies actually connect and relate to each other, that they support each other, that she, the warrior goddess, is an advocate for the sensual goddess. She places down boundaries around your time so that you can take a bubble bath for your sensual goddess. And your sensual goddess fills up the tank so that your warrior goddess has power and energy. She has the fuel there. So the warrior goddesses are fire energy. These goddesses tend to have this fiery quality to them, while the sensual goddesses are water energy, are connected to bodies of water. Now, the third aspect of your feminine power is the compassionate goddess. And the compassionate goddess is your heart. And in our culture, we don't really hold the power and the energy of the heart and value it. And as a woman, as a leader, your heart, your open heart, actually your vulnerability for people to be able to feel you is really important, because that actually galvanizes people behind you. That actually allows people to want to get behind your vision. And we're taught that power is this thing that's the stiff, tense, kind of armored way of being. And she teaches us that actually laying down that armor is incredible power. That by really allowing our hearts to be felt, that we are owning and embodying our feminine power. So this goddess energy, there's Kuan Yin, who is the Buddhist goddess of compassion. And I'm going to do another screen share for you. So this goddess power covers generosity, feeling your heart activated, you're magnetic, you're charismatic from this place, you feel supported, you have unshakable trust. You also tap into synchronicities, you feel lucky. And some of the compassionate goddesses from around the world are Mother Mary, Yemaya from the African Yoruban tradition, and that's Tara from the Buddhist tradition. And then we also have Kuan Yin, who's the Buddhist goddess of compassion, gentleness, and purity. Now, when we're able to connect to this energy, there's a lightness that comes over us. And there's a way that we really are trusting and we're able to surrender to something beyond the ego mind, the ego self. And it's through that that other people really feel us. And these goddesses, the story of Kuan Yin is that she was so evolved. She was a bodhisattva. She was about to attain full Buddhahood. And when she was about to step through the gateway, kind of into the other side, beyond living in the world that we live in with the samsara and the continuous living in these cycles of suffering, she heard the cries of the world. That's one of her names, Kuan Yin, she who hears the cries of the world. She heard people suffering. And she said, you know what, I actually can't leave and just sort of go and be in bliss beyond that. I actually am going to devote myself to being here and supporting those that are in suffering. So she's a goddess that you call upon when you need compassion, and you also can embody her and be an embodiment of compassion for others. But when we connect to this power of the feminine, we start to really value these more subtle, less armored, giving powers, this power of generosity, this power of caring, this power of oneness, of really feeling others. So those are the three basic primary powers. And they also are power centers within our body. So when I spoke earlier about becoming an embodiment of the divine feminine, that you embody feminine power and that you lead from that place, I was really speaking to the fact that these powers are something that we access within our own body and activate. So as I referenced earlier, the sensual goddess is a brain, a seat of consciousness that resides within our sexual center. The warrior goddess is a seat of consciousness that resides within the gut center, and also the womb, which is a deeper aspect of those gut instincts. And then the compassionate goddess resides in the heart. So to become an embodiment of the divine feminine is really to embody these three aspects of your feminine power by embodying them literally within your body. So when you activate the compassionate goddess, you activate a seat of consciousness, a brain within your heart. You begin to be able to actually feel, lead, think from the heart. So just taking a moment now and place your hands on your heart and close your eyes. And just taking a deep breath, just imagine that you're able to activate a generator within the heart. And as you activate that, just begin to see if you can feel the voice of the heart, to feel the energy of the heart. Imagine what it would feel like to be able to shoot energy out of the heart so that other people can feel your love. that start to feel into the fact that there literally is a brain, that there's consciousness within this heart. And that as you drop out of the head and you drop into the body and you let yourself begin to really live and breathe from these spaces within yourself, that you can guide from there, that you can live from there and think from there and feel from there. And if your eyes are closed, you can go ahead and open them back up. Now, moving down, the warrior goddess that I spoke of, she really resides within the gut center. So again, you can place your hands over that part of the body and close your eyes once more. And imagine that there's a generator and a consciousness, a brain within this part of the body. And that as you activate this center, that you can live, breathe, think from this brain, from this consciousness. And again, send energy out from this place that allows people to feel your boundaries, not to fuck with you. They can also feel your potency, your fire. And then now, this is the one. So in our in our consciousness, we've talked about these states of consciousness. We've heard it talked about before, right? Like, what does your heart think? What does your heart say? Listen to your heart. And then we've heard about gut instincts, really following that way. And now even they talk about the fact that there is a gut brain, that we recognize that there is consciousness in the gut. So science is verifying these things. The one that science in our culture does not talk about so much is this one that is in our sexual center. And then talk about it in kind of joking ways for men, but very rarely do we hear that same thing for women. Very rarely does anyone say, oh, she only thinks with her pussy. It'd be great if you thought with her pussy more. So now gently place your hands over this part of your body. And with your eyes closed, just breathe into and feel and imagine that you have a generator in this part of your body, that you have consciousness in this part of your body, that this part of your body lets you know what is your yes. It lets you know what you're turned on by. That this is a wisdom and a power that you can trust. And just with the eyes closed and your hands gently placed there, breathing into this part of the body. Imagine that you're, with every breath, lighting up, that there's like a little spark. And with each breath, it's getting more oxygen and it's starting to flame up. And more energy is coming into this part of the body. And if there's any sensations of pleasure, just breathing into that and allowing that to be there. And then now taking one breath in and feeling it go all the way into this part of your body, and as well as the gut center, the heart center. And then exhaling it all out. And then opening your eyes. So a big part of stepping into your feminine power is really embracing the wisdom of your body. It's allowing yourself to be so present in the body that maybe it even scares you a little bit to be that present. We're so used to having really shallow breathing or keeping the breath up here. We're not used to really letting the breath go down into the lower parts of the body. That's literally, it's like our culture has almost taught us that it's evil or sinful to be awake and alive and present in that part of our body. It's almost like you're descending into like the pit of fiery hell when you go down there, and that we allow it in certain moments, right? In the bedroom, in a sexual moment. And again, only to a certain degree. For most of us, there's a lot more to be explored, a lot more opening that could happen even in those moments. But absolutely, when you're at work or you're out in the world or, driving your car or, in anywhere in public, your instincts and what you've been told by our culture is like, don't go down there, don't feel the sensations down there. In the sexual sensations, and even often what's happening in that womb and that gut space too. And that's where a lot of our emotions get stuffed. And when we're not breathing into those places, we're not in our power. And really, as I said earlier, we are meant to lead and guide by our presence. So a woman who is embodying her true feminine power, when she steps into a room, people feel it. They feel the power. And that is the power of presence. And that presence comes from a level of embodiment, of being alive in the moment, in the instinctual self. Now, to be an embodiment of feminine power is to embody all three of these energies simultaneously. So that means that you're breathing all the way through your being. And that means that you're, in one moment, you're being completely unashamed, owning your sensuality and the fluidity that's there. That's natural to you. It's not putting anything on like that. It's actually just allowing what's naturally there to not be shut down, not be covered up. So it's letting yourself be unashamedly a sensual, sexual, alive woman. Also, people will feel your fierceness. That kind of like, I'm not going to fuck with her. But she's like in her gut. She's in that fire. She knows how to place down her boundaries. And that's something that people will just feel. And that ability to speak your truth. So simultaneously, you're holding both of those energies. You're embodying both of those things. And as well, the heart. And when you are embodying this energy, you are love. You're just owning, embodying your nature as love. And in some ways, it would almost be irresponsible of me to only teach you those bottom two because they're so potent and powerful, right? If you're this fiery, sensual beast, but then all that energy comes up and it moves through the heart as love. So you can be this wild, sensual, bitchy beast of love. And people will feel that. It raises the frequency of every space that you step into when you are embodying this. So this is what our new paradigm female leaders are meant to be. A woman who steps into a space and shifts the frequency by her presence, by her aliveness, by her ability to simultaneously own and embody all of these energies. This is actually what's going to help heal our world. Now, for you as a woman, what it does for you is it fills your tank. You're not going to be so burnt out. You become burnt out because you become disembodied, and because you're not fueling yourself with that energy of joy, of pleasure. And I'm going to teach you an exercise in a moment that is a breathing practice that really helps to fill your tank and activate that sensual goddess. But we burn out because we're in our head. We're disembodied and we're pushing and we're leaning into our masculine. What we're able to do here is we're able to fill that tank become embodied, and lead in this very easeful place with trust, with surrender that comes with the compassionate goddess, with this real safety that we feel when our warrior goddess is activated in a healthy way and she's laying down boundaries. And then our tank is full with pleasure and joy. That's what it means to be a new paradigm female leader. Now, each of these goddess powers does have a wounded expression. So just as earlier I was saying, you know, there's a divine masculine and then there's this wounded masculine expression and divine wounded feminine. There is a wounded expression of each of these faces. So the wounded sensual goddess is a woman who identifies with the qualities of this Aphrodite, of this sensuality, but she's doing it in a disempowered place, which is usually happening when she's not activated the other energies. See, so it's like they're very dependent upon each other. They're interdependent. They support one another. But if you're accessing the sensual goddess energy, but you're not accessing your warrior goddess, you're not able to place down boundaries, that creates some issues. You're going to be in a wound there. Or if you're not able to bring that higher frequency into the heart as well, you're living in a wound. And also our culture gives us, kind of instructs us in a wounded expression of this sensual goddess energy all the time. And it's this energy where you are really defining yourself under the male gaze. You're using seduction in a way that isn't really integrated, again, with the higher heart frequency, and it's coming from a place of weakness as opposed to a place of strength and self-trust. So that wounded version is something that we see out there so often that it's also a deterrent in some ways for the healthy expression. The healthy expression is just healthfully being really connected to your own pleasure and to your own energy and your sexuality and your sensuality and joy of the moment. But this unhealthy expression, which we think has to do with like hair looking a certain way or dressing a certain way and having makeup on, or again, like sort of putting yourself under that male gaze and using manipulation and seduction to get things. That's the wounded expression. And sometimes when women are in that wound too, it's like they'll, there's just all sorts of things that it can guide you into doing because you want to get that response from the masculine. Now, the wounded warrior is one that a lot of women are living in, which is you're armored and you're identifying with kind of the toughness or the pushing and the drive and the goal-driven aspect of it, but you're not allowing this true strength and power to move through you. You're not really trusting your wild woman, which is that sort of more embodied aspect. A lot of times women that are living in the warrior goddess energy are in the head. It's kind of like a heady version of the warrior goddess, not the embodied version. And when you're in that wound as well, like I said, you'll be armored. Your boundaries are so tough that you won't let anyone in. And again, that's coming, and you get depleted, and that's coming from not letting your sensual goddess power fuel you and not allowing your heart to be activated and seen and opened. So that's the wounded warrior goddess. Now, the wounded compassionate goddess we see a lot is a martyr. And that's because certain aspects of the compassionate goddess are encouraged, you know, a mother, that like endless giving, because the compassionate goddess energy is unconditional love. Now we have to, that's balanced and fueled by these other energies first. It's like she's kind of the crown on top of these other energies which are supporting her. But if you don't have a sensual goddess energy activated or strong warrior goddess activated where you're able to place down boundaries, then you will become a martyr. You're just like giving and giving, and you're not giving to yourself. So the wounded compassionate goddess is just that kind of victim-y giving, and that eventually also really leads to depletion. So those are the wounded expressions. Now, really, the antidote to all of that is just activating all three of them. So if you're thinking of yourself and you're going, oh, I identify with this one, but then recognizing, oh, I've been in the wound of it, part of how you will heal that is by going, okay, well, let me start leaning into these other faces of the feminine. And a lot of the kind of goddess work that's out there is something like, you know, what goddess are you? And we all might have one that's like our more natural kind of instinct that we lean into, or what other people see. But I believe that we're all meant to be all of the goddesses. Like, that's the gift, is that we're meant to embody all of them. And that these stories and these myths are guides to help us find these parts of ourselves within our body and within our psyche. So, and it's also finding the embodied version is going to help you find the true version. So the wounded version is often a disembodied expression. When you actually come in, you activate that power within the body, you come into a pure frequency of that and a more real version of it. So often, like, for example, I'm thinking of like a wounded Aphrodite or a wounded sensual goddess. Might be a woman who's like, you know, got the hair all done and the makeup and like all the clothes and this kind of thing. Is like, I'm so, you know, kind of doing this sexy thing, but she might not really be that connected to her own sexuality, to her own ability to experience pleasure. And she might be more focused on bringing the pleasure to someone else. So that's the model. And what I do is I work with women on going through and really learning the different goddesses that are in each of these archetypal powers and how to activate them. And we work on this both through the mental level, which is hearing the stories, understanding behavioral things that you can do. So sometimes that might be a journaling practice or a way that you can implement it in a practical way in your life through habits and behaviors. And then we also work on a spiritual level. And that level, it's really, you know, when we're working with archetypes, it's like it doesn't have to be a spiritual practice necessarily, but it can be a choice to work with that. And if you want to work with that goddess, it's kind of like having a relationship with her and calling upon her. That's how I see it. And that could still be understood in kind of that she is an aspect of your psyche that you're calling in. To me, this psyche version and the spiritual version really aren't that different. So some people are uncomfortable with the thought of it being a spiritual practice to say, oh, I'm going to connect to that goddess. And I really offer that she is an aspect of your psyche, and that all of these myths and these stories are really stories that were crafted in order for us to understand how to connect to aspects of our own psyche, aspects of ourself. But you can call upon her. You can call upon Mother Mary when you're needing a miracle, or you can call in Lakshmi. She's a sensual goddess, but she is a goddess of prosperity and abundance when you're wanting to feel more abundant. There are practical ways, there are things that you can do to bring up that energy within yourself. There's ways that you can form a relationship with her and just start to kind of give her permission for that aspect to work through you and be present in you. And then there's the physical level, which I mentioned before, that these goddess archetypes are actually seats of consciousness within the body. So then working to activate that within yourself and embody that. And that's what I want to do with you right now. So go ahead. What we're going to do is we're going to do a breathing practice to rejuvenate your system through the feminine sensual goddess. So go ahead and close your eyes. And with your eyes closed, I want you to remember what we did at the top of the call. I had you just start to really breathe into your hips, breathe into the parts of your body making contact with the seat beneath you, and breathing into the whole pelvic floor. And as you're doing that, again, feeling that it's like each breath is like bringing flame to candle wax. So each breath that you bring in is softening and melting that part of your body. So feeling your butt cheeks, feeling your thighs, feeling the pelvic floor, feeling your sexual organs soften Right now we have permission to soften. Nothing needs to be stiff or hard. That's the old paradigm version of power. We're learning a new paradigm, feminine version of power, which is all about softening to connect to my power. So you're softening all the pelvic floor and then identifying that perineum and dropping that cord of connection once again. So dropping that cord of connection from the center of your pelvic floor through the seat cushion beneath you, down through the floorboards, and into the basement of your building, down into the earth, and dropping that cord so that it's once again dropped all the way down to the very center of the earth, wrapping itself around. And you're feeling this connection. You're feeling resourced. You're feeling supported. There's an intimate connection taking place between your pelvis and the very core of the earth. And we're going to do a breathing practice now. And what you're going to do is you're going to breathe in through the nose on a count of 4, and then you're going to hold on a count of 4, and then we're going to breathe out through the mouth on a count of 8. And as you're breathing out through the mouth, you're going to do a little bit of contraction in the back of the throat, and this thickens the breath, almost like a milkshake thickness of breath. And it sounds like this. And I sometimes call that like a Darth Vader breath, but there's just this little bit of contraction and thickness, but you're not pushing out. So we'll try it together. And again, it's not a pushing, but it's just allowing, almost like steam rising from the pipes. So you're going to inhale through the nose and then hold. And then exhale out through the mouth with that little contraction, Darth Vader breath. Inhale in through the nose. And hold. And then we're going to exhale out through the mouth. All right, now that you have the rhythm, this next breath, I would like for you to breathe in, inhale up through the pelvis. Imagine you're breathing through that cord. So inhaling and then holding. And then exhaling out through the mouth. Inhale in through that cord, up through the sexual center. Of course, still breathing through the nose when you do that. And then holding. And then exhaling out through the mouth. One more. Inhaling in through the sexual center. Holding. And exhaling out. Now I want you to pause for a moment with the eyes closed. I want you to notice if you're feeling any energy circulating in the pelvis and in that sexual center area. You might feel a little bit of a tingling sensation. You might feel a kind of a sense of like a light. You might see like a golden light. And just allowing that energy to move anywhere it wants to move. So if there's any subtle, maybe circling around in the pelvis that you want to do, anything that lets you just kind of like that, this energy has a consciousness. This energy is the divine feminine energy. So feeling where that energy wants to move. Following her lead, or just staying very simple if that feels good to you. And then what we're going to do now is we're just going to do a little bit of a pelvic rocking. So you're going to inhale slightly forward and feel like a little arching in the back, and then you're going to exhale, curling with the pelvis moving back. So inhaling, arching the back slightly, and then exhaling, there's a little curve that happens. But this movement is coming from the pelvis itself. So what we're doing here is we're activating this part of the body so that you can allow this seat of consciousness to guide you more. So you can really let yourself be living and breathing and thinking and feeling from your sexual center, from the sensual goddess. This is the sort of starting point, the activation for this. So inhaling and then exhaling, inhaling and then exhaling. And this just brings a little bit of fire to it. So just letting the pelvis guide that and going for as long as it feels good and it feels right, and then bringing it to stillness. And it's kind of like this wild horse that's in your pelvis that you've let take the lead. So she's deciding the rhythm, the pace, how long she wants to go. And then eventually you kind of come to a climax of energy and you bring it to stillness. And then now sitting and feeling that energy circling and moving around in the pelvis. And just being present and giving permission to any sensation you're having, whatever you're feeling, and letting that move through the body. So that when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back here with us. And so that's just an example of one practice that allows you to start to open up the gateway to become an embodiment of this power, to activate this power within your body, and starting to give you that sensation of, oh yeah, there is consciousness and awakeness and aliveness there that I can move through and let guide me in my day. And then ultimately we really work with moving those energies up all the way through so that we're activating all parts, these wisdom centers that I described to you. So there's so much more that I could say about this. It's like really right now I'm just giving you the very tip of the iceberg of what this model of feminine power is. Now, this is something that I've been working with for the past 6 years. This first downloaded to me in 2012 when I was in Costa Rica about to lead a retreat. And since then, I've created a course. And this course is an immersion that takes you through each of these faces of your feminine power. And it's really, so far up to this point, I've only led it in small circles in New York City and in Los Angeles. And it is really the process of coming into being this embodiment of feminine power. And for women, it activates their lives in so many areas. It's like your relationships start to shift, your career starts to shift, your emotional well-being, your health. Everything is positively influenced by you coming back home into your body, by trusting your feminine instincts, and by activating this feminine power. And for the first time, I am actually going to be leading this in a virtual format. And so it's going to be a 12-week immersion that is beginning September 26th, where we will go through the curriculum of activating each of these facets of your feminine power. And I'm gonna go ahead and do another screen share here just so I can show you a little bit about the details of what this looks like. So the first week, we start off the course with care of the body temple. So the first 2 weeks are what I call the foundation. And during the foundation, we're really starting the very basics of coming into your body, of really preparing yourself to do this deeper work with these different goddess archetypes. So and coming home to the physical body, we do detox practices. We look at doing deepening this breath work, creating morning rituals, and really committing making a commitment to embodiment and a commitment to presence, a commitment to really living and breathing as an embodiment of Goddess. And then in week 2, we move into creating sacred space in your home. So it's understanding that we have to have these basic foundations around us that support us being in our highest frequency and vibration. And so really understanding that our home is a temple, and really also understanding that we need to begin with our inner world. Before we take things out into the outer world, we begin with the inner world. So we focus on home clearing practices, creating an altar space, and focusing on the goddess Hestia, who is the goddess of the hearth and the home fire, and understanding how to activate that within ourselves, because our first home is the body. And it's getting this connection between the physical body, and then the next layer out is that home body around us, that space, and creating something that's going to really allow you to flourish and focus for the rest of the course. So then week 3 is where we move into the sensual goddess. So we spend 3 weeks focusing completely on the sensual goddess. And the first week with the sensual goddess is about opening to your erotic innocence. So it's starting to understand what is the true divine expression of the sensual goddess, not this wounded expression that we've seen out there, but really your own erotic innocence, awakening that sensual power. So this is the goddess power of Aphrodite. So we spend a week connecting to her, understanding her story, how to embody her. And this is about having permission for your yes to be plugged in, to feel turned on, to move through your day, feeling that activated, alive, to really allow yourself to receive support, to not have to do everything on your own, and focusing on your pleasure, creating space for that, and really allowing yourself to immerse into being in the now. And then week 4 is unleashing the positive powers of sacred seduction. And this is with the goddess Oshun. And this is, again, continuing to fill your tank with pleasure and starting to understand that your sensuality and your magnetism is a superpower that serves the world. So she starts to teach us how to use seduction in a sacred way, not as a manipulation, but how to make love and seduce in the world in a way that allows you to be magnetic and serve yourself and others. And activating that magical honey pot that allows you to draw support like bees to honey. And then week 5 is mastering magnetism and attracting prosperity. So we're working with the goddess Lakshmi. She's a sensual goddess that's also the goddess of abundance and prosperity. So understanding the connection between your prosperity and your sexual energy. Also, personalizing your prosperity consciousness, really understanding what is your unique prosperous vision. How do you define prosperity for yourself? And then sensual self-care rituals to increase your ability to draw prosperity to you and to just feel and vibrate at the level of prosperity. So that you actually, again, like this is all about being what you want, coming into alignment with it. So it's actually on a cellular level, stepping into being prosperity. And then week 6, we move into the warrior goddess. So this is where we get fierce. And this is embracing the force and direction of your personal vision and goals with the goddess Artemis. She's the Greek and Roman goddess of the hunt. Now, she's also the goddess of the moon. So this is about feeling your gut instincts, harmonizing your assertive masculine direction with your feminine, womb-centered lunar side, tuning into the moon and balancing your solar and lunar energies. Also activating the womb, which is this deeper level of this gut instinct. It's your womb intuition, your womb instinct, your womb brain and guidance, and allowing you to be a womb-centered woman. Now, week 7 is speaking your deepest truth. And this is with the goddess Durga. She's the Hindu warrior goddess of truth, of boundary setting. So this is about activating your voice, speaking your truth unapologetically, placing down boundaries with ease, being okay saying no to others. The sensual goddess is all about your yes, and this is about your no, and connecting to your anger and harnessing it for transformation. and understanding what the principles of transformation are, how to up-level anything in your life by using these principles of transform energy. This is fire energy and the power of Durga. And then week 8 is merging with your shadow and embracing the power of your wild woman. And this is goddess power Kali, she's a Hindu goddess, and Oya, who's an African Yoruban warrior goddess. And this is all about embracing your inner bitch, your wild side, merging with your shadow. And this is actually a deep practice of self-love and going into non-duality and non-judgment as a leader. So we need to go into these dark places within ourselves. And once we have integrated and owned that, this is something that others can feel in your presence. And it allows you to be a much more effective leader and allows you to actually stand and hold your power as a woman. Now, week 9 is all about self-love. This is where we move into the compassionate goddess. So we've awakened our sensual, sexual energy with the feminine. We've moved into really owning and doing kind of the deeply intense transformational work of the warrior goddess and the fierceness. And then we move into compassion. And we're moving energetically up, right? So we've started with the sexual center, we moved up to the gut and the womb, and now we're in the heart space. And it's this beautiful moment of opening where you're really able to be in self-love because you've moved through these shadowy places. Now, this is opening up your heart to you, moving through places where you still hold any shame to find self-love, practices for compassion and gentleness towards yourself, and learning how to let your heart lead. Really letting your heart be the thinker. And then week 10 is surrender, and this is Goddess Power, Mother Mary. This is about really understanding that your vulnerability is a strength, that vulnerability is a power, and you're surrendering your need to control. This is a big one for a lot of us. Learning to manifest gently through subtle energy field instead of pushing and forcing, and asking for support and softening to receive. And then week 11 is integration with the goddess Isis from Egypt. So this is integrating your softness and your strength together, harmonizing your heart energy with your sexual energy and feeling the strength of your heart. So this is where you get to be strong, sexy, and compassionate all at once. We're starting to bring all the energies together. And the final week is where we're bringing it out into the world and focusing on keeping the momentum going. Because this, I guarantee you, in these 12 weeks, what happens for women is truly life-changing. And I know that's a cliche, but women's lives kind of get on fire. So much happens in these 12 weeks. But what can happen is that afterwards, that if you sort of get disconnected to the tribe, you stop doing your practices, you can sort of fall off. And I want to help you keep that momentum going. I've taught this enough times to know that it's really important for you to craft a plan. And to really, I'm going to give you different tools and practices that you can do every day. And then you're going to craft your own plan to keep this momentum going as you move forward. And so the Embodied Feminine Leadership includes 12 weekly live video classes with Q&A afterwards. You're always going to be able to do a live Q&A with me. You're going to have a lot of additional audios and videos. These will be different meditations, visualizations, practices, things that you'll be able to do at home in your own time outside of the live weekly classes. There's also a private Facebook group where women get to really support each other, and a buddy system for support as well. And I really encourage women to be in touch with other women so you don't feel so isolated and alone in the process, that you've got someone that's kind of keeping you accountable and that you can even do some of the practices with. And the dates are September 26th. It's starting a week from today, next Wednesday, and it's every Wednesday evening. All the classes will be recorded, so if you ever miss something, you will get the recording the next day and you will be able to have unlimited viewing of that. But the live classes are on Wednesday evenings at 6 Pacific time until 7:30. And we skip Halloween. And for more details, you can go to my website, urbangoddessretreats.com. And if you click on online courses, there's a drop-down menu for Embodied Feminine Leadership. Now, I'm going to stop the share there. So this, like I said, it's a cliche to say something's life-changing. But if you go on the website, you'll see in women's own voices the experiences that they've had. And it's really, you have to read what they say, because for it to come from me, I can't even really express it as well as they do. But women truly shift and transform. And it's like visions that women have been holding, ideas that they've had, they've wanted to bring out in the world, finally see light. There are women that have come to me in a job that they didn't like and now have published books by major publishers because they've activated themselves and gotten out into the world. The women that come and do this work generally are coming from two places. One is you are ready to step into leadership. You've got a lot of ideas. You're kind of maybe coming from a healing space or a creative space, and you want to activate that and you want to really step into your power. Or women who are already in positions of leadership, like CEOs, founders of companies, high-level executives, doctors, women who have kind of achieved that level of success, but have found that they're burning out. And both of these women are really well served by this work because it allows you to really be in your power, to activate your true authentic power, but to do it in a way that is feminine. So the course is starting next Wednesday, and the price is $9.99. And that includes all 12 classes, all the extra videos and audios that you'll have a year. You'll have unlimited access to that. The Facebook group, all of that support that you're going to get there with your buddy as well. Now, there's also payment plans for that. And the payment plan works out over a 3 or 4 month cycle. You have options on that. And there's an early bird, which expires this Friday at midnight. And the early bird is $888. And you can pay that over 4 monthly payments. And there's an additional, if you want to do some private work with me as well, there are additional upgrades that are on the website that you can do. So I invite you to join us in this journey. We've already got a really great group of women on board. And, I just did the prosperity course a few months ago, and it's incredible to see the community that develops and the way women really support each other through the process. And the level of transformation is astounding to me that can actually take place in a virtual course. Because prior to this, I had only done these circles in person, and I knew that that was transformational. And to see what occurred for women through the virtual course allows me to really feel confident and letting you know that if you decide to participate in this, that your life will change for the better, that you will start to activate your true power. And I want to see if there are any questions here. How long is the sessions? I'm just going to hop on here. The sessions are an hour and a half on Wednesday evenings. Faye says the class is truly transformative and opens up parts of you. Faye did it with me in person in New York a few years ago. Parts of you that you never even imagined you could access. And I want to I see that there's a chat and there's also a Q&A, and I just want to check if there's something separate. Okay, that's the Q&As not going. So if you have any questions right now for me, I'm going to stay on here for a few more minutes, and you can type it into the chat or the Q&A. Actually, type it into the chat so then we just have one thing that's open. So any questions about the course or any questions about anything that I talked about, questions about the breathing practice that we did together, questions about the goddesses, I am yours for the next however long, for the next 10, 15 minutes if people have questions. All right, I'm not seeing any questions come up. Okay. So I'm not seeing any questions there. So let's go ahead and close out. What I would love to do to close out for tonight is to go ahead and just close your eyes. And once again, I want you to place a hand on your heart. And I want you to take the other hand and I want you to place it And what I would say is your womb center, which is basically your hand is kind of encompassing both your sexual center and that gut center where we were placing hands before. And I want you to take in a nice deep breath into the lower hand, into the belly, into the womb, the gut center. And then exhale and send a breath from there up towards the heart. And then just take in a deep breath and feel the heart activated, allowing the chest to expand, breathing into the heart. And then send a breath from the heart down to the womb. And I want you to take 2 more breaths in your own rhythm, just harmonizing your heart and your womb. And I want you just, while you're there in this space, feeling your heart, feeling your womb, you have your eyes closed, I want you to make a promise to yourself. And I want you to make a promise that you're going to honor your feminine, that you're not going to bully her. You're not going to shut her out, shut her down. You're going to start listening to her more. You're going to allow her wisdom, her intuition, her guidance to be present. And you're making a commitment to your feminine. And I want you to breathe in and really just say to yourself, I get that you're powerful. This is a form of power. All right. Really, it's been such a pleasure to be with you here and share this information with you this evening. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions about the course or about anything we talked about that come up for you afterwards, you can feel free to email me. My email address is amanda@urbangoddessretreats.com. And you can also contact me through my website. There is an option there to contact me as well, urbangoddessretreats.com. If you're joining us for the immersion, I'm so excited to go on this 12-week journey with you. And good night, all. Thank you. I see a few ladies I know here. I'm kind of, I already signed up. I'm kind of blown away. Maybe others are too. Lots to process. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful ladies. Good night.